And so, my friends, here we are, after months of silence. We're back here with more Neoncast. How about that? Didn't see this coming. Me, least of all, did not see this coming. But yes, here I am, which would make this episode 13. We could call this Neoncast 2.0, episode 1, or Neon, the Next Generation, or something like that. But I just prefer, hey, I'm back with you again with another one of these. I recently took up Twitch streaming. I got myself a PS4 and I took up some Twitch streaming, and that whole, just talking about stuff and whatever kind of reignited the urge in me to do maybe something like this. I'm also expanding the previously dedicated to this thing Twitter account at Neoncast to include some of my other projects that are sort of more visually and audio oriented, such as YouTube videos and Neoncasts and Twitch things. And yes, I did say videos, but maybe a little bit on that later. Yes, I'm here to talk about two things that I recently watched, one of which I enjoyed tremendously, and one of which I did not enjoy tremendously. Let's start with the latter. The much discussed and not much anticipated Ghost in the Shell movie, starring everyone's favorite Japanese woman, Scarlett Johansson, and directed by everyone's favorite Hollywood director, Rupert Sanders. Yeah. Little bit of history. On this podcast, I already talked about Ghost in the Shell because of the anticipation for this movie, if one could call that anticipation, more like dread. It's like the way you anticipate surgery. But of course, I've been on, following the news about this project since very early on, being that I'm a big fan of the Ghost in the Shell anime franchise. I actually haven't read the manga ever. I probably should now, but I came up with the anime. I've known about the anime for many, many years. I remember finding out about it in the late 90s. But all I ever watched was the first movie for many years, and then the second movie at some point. The show I had not watched until many years later because I kind of shied away from anime TV. I, for some reason, for years had this misconception that TV anime was somehow inferior to cinema, like anime movies. Now, in some ways, you could say that that's true. Movies tend to have overall higher production budget. I'm talking about crossover movies because I wasn't in the anime community. So anime movies I heard about weren't inside things. There were things that kind of crossed over into the mainstream. Akira, Ninja Scroll, Ghost in the Shell, and things of that nature. So I watched the two movies, and the show, whatever, I didn't. And so then when I started actually watching anime shows, somewhere around 2010, because I'd watched Cowboy Bebop years earlier, but that was like the only show I think I'd ever watched as an adult, like a serious anime show. So yeah, around 2010, 2011. And so I decided I was going to finally watch it because I rewatched the movie around that time. Watched the shows, and they're just phenomenal. They really take the concepts that are introduced in the movies and expand on them in a really smart and interesting way, not just episodic, there's a robot thing that we got to do, so let's go do this robot thing. There are episodes like that. The shows are cleverly arranged into episodes that are standalones and episodes that are complex. The show's called Standalone Complex. And the show is divided into standalone and complex episodes. The complex episodes are part of the main storyline, and then you got your standalones, which are just like I said, robot goes crazy, investigation. Those are great too, by the way. It's just nice that there's this interesting mix. And then in the second season, they compound that and they make 3 different categories. But that's, never mind. Too inside for what I'm talking about. I'm just giving some background, right? So yes, I like Ghost in the Shell a lot. Oh, there's also the prequels. Arise and the Ghost in the Shell new movie, anime movie, but whatever. We can leave that alone. Also, the movies in the show exist in different continuities. There's very subtle differences. It's not really important. Like Togusa. In the movie, Togusa is a human who has no cybernetic enhancements. It's a personal preference of his. He doesn't want cyber enhancements, and he is a cop. I think he's a homicide detective, and he's transferred into this like super secret high level unit called Section 9, and their thing is they investigate like cyber type crimes, but thinking in a world where everything is cyber, they're kind of cyber cops. And he's the new guy, and basically the story of the movie, that's the launching point of the movie, is he's the new guy on the team, and like I said, he's completely non-enhanced. But then on the show, he's not the new guy. He's exactly the same character. He's just been there for a while. And then like in the prequels, the origin story of Section 9 is changed. But again, all the characters are basically the same characters. They're all voiced by the same people. They all they have all the same character attributes. It's just different storylines. I actually like that. I wish they would do that more here. Like, why not make a Justice League movie that's all of a sudden just like a totally different continuity? And I know people say, oh, it'll be confusing and nobody will know where. I mean, maybe I picked a bad example right now with Justice League, but I don't think that it's crazy. I mean, look at Logan, a movie that came out not long ago and I didn't have a chance to discuss on this because I wasn't doing this. Fucking amazing, amazing movie that has it's its own continuity. It's in the X-Men universe. It has the X-Men characters that you know, and other X-Men characters that you know are referenced or vaguely referenced. But it's not in any of it couldn't have coexisted with any of the other X-Men movies except for maybe X-Men 1. Meaning, if there was only the first X-Men movie and this, then technically you could argue that they were in the same movie, in the same universe, but everything that comes after that fucks it up. But who cares? It's a great story. It doesn't step on anything else, and the other stuff doesn't step on this. It's its own continuity. And I like that. So which brings us to this Ghost in the Shell movie. That was announced a while back. I don't even remember when, but I already did not like what I was hearing about it for a few reasons. And this section of the Neoncast is going to have to get a little political, but as you've known, if you've listened to all 12 of the old ones, I only talk about politics on this podcast when I'm taking the side that's the opposite of what people think I think. Like if you follow me on Twitter, and even if not, you probably know what I think about certain things. So if I have a point to make that's unpredictable, then I think maybe it's worth making in a forum like this. One of the big concerns that people had when Scarlett Johansson was cast in the role was the so-called whitewashing debate. Now, I don't like that title because I think it mushes together a few different things, some of which are things that I don't object to, and others are things that I do think those people have a point when they speak about. But yeah, so Scarlett Johansson, obviously, the main character of Ghost in the Shell, Motoko Kusanagi, is a Japanese woman. I mean, she's her body's robotic, but it's Japanese. It's in Japan. All the characters are Japanese. Bato, Togusa, Saito, Aramaki. They're a bunch of Japanese people. And it's also very Japanese in its nature. It kind of alludes to Japanese bureaucratic structure and government corruption and stuff of that nature. But that's easy to replace because, and also it in turn was kind of influenced by stuff like Blade Runner. So cross-cultural breeding of ideas is something that's existed forever and has been responsible for some of the greatest art ever, which is why, the whole cultural appropriation is something I don't understand. Like, I love when two things come together. So Ghost in the Shell is, some manga artist in Japan watched a bunch of American cyberpunk stuff and was like, wow, this is awesome. Let me kind of make something Japanesey from that, makes that, and then that in turn influences The Matrix, which is an American movie that has Asian influences that in themselves are American influences. See, it's not, nothing is pure. I mean, it's not like somebody took something from like Shinto mythology and said, okay, I'm going to, appropriate this, whatever. Cross-cultural breeding, right? So it's a Japanese thing, and it takes place in Japan, and everything's Japanese. And so when they cast Scarlett Johansson, and they also cast as Bato the Danish actor that I'm going to tell you his name now because I don't know it offhand, and he's actually maybe the only thing I liked about this movie. Pilo Asbake. Danish has a bunch of kind of vowels that are hard to pronounce if you're not Danish. It's like an A with an E, and they're kind of connected. You know that letter? Whatever. Anyway, he was good, but we'll get to that. So when these two guys were cast, obviously he's Danish and she's American. So people said, what the fuck? Now, what I thought was going to happen was I thought they were just going to make like an American version. Like, Ringu, they made an American version of that called The Ring. It just took place in Seattle, and it was all American people, because the idea behind Ringu is it was like there was like a wave in Japan of horror movies that were rooted in more modern elements, like a video that you watch. Also, One Missed Call, which was then also remade as an American movie that was really bad. The Japanese movie is actually pretty good. And there's a couple of those. The Grudge, Ju-on, they're all like sort of more modern takes on like Japanese ghost stories. And a bunch of those were then taken and adapted in the West. And by adapted, I mean they took the idea of the movie and they made, they took the general, like they bought the rights to the idea and they made a similar story based on that concept. That's how intellectual property rights work. Like, the show In Treatment that was on HBO with fucking Gabriel Byrne, that was adapted from an Israeli show that just had that general concept. It was about a therapist and his and his clients, and one of them was a pilot in both versions. But none of it was the same because the Israeli show was very Israeli, and it was about things that were going on in Israel, and a pilot in Israel and a pilot in the U.S. military are very different life experiences. And they're also very different kinds of people who occupy those roles in society. So it was just general, like Homeland. That's also adapted from an Israeli show, and they're nothing alike other than they're both about soldiers who come back from captivity after many, many years, and there's an element of suspicion about whether or not they were turned and became double agents while in captivity. That's it. That's the concept that was bought. So I thought Ghost in the Shell was going to be something like that. Like, okay, we're going to make a dystopian future, whatever, and it's just going to be a bunch of like the same idea, only here, right? But then that's not what they did. They kept it in Japan. They cast Takeshi Kitano beat Takeshi as Chief Aramaki. He's a sort of a famous Japanese actor. And then there are other Asian actors in it. The guy who plays Togusa is Chin Han. He's Chinese, but he's in The Dark Knight. He plays the banker guy. It's sort of a minor role in Ghost of the Shell. You know what? I actually kind of liked him too, although I think Togusa needs to be younger. I feel like he's a little too old for that role. But whatever. So they were going to make it Japanese, but with American actors. And that's where things get a little weird to me. That's where I start to see a little bit of why people on the, quote unquote other side of the political map from where I am get annoyed, because I sort of share their annoyance. I don't know if I would automatically call it racist. That to me just feels wrong. Like, I've found that many things that I hear that are described as racist or sexist behavior, I totally agree that it's bad behavior. But if you would ask me, like if I saw somebody do that in public and you asked me how I would describe their behavior, I would usually just say it may be impolite or gross or mean or uncivilized. But like, I don't as often go to the place of racism or the place of sexism. That's not to say I'm right. I'm just telling you what my experience is. But so in this case, like I said, to me, when you say whitewashing, the thing I think about is what they call white savior I don't know, where like the movie The Great Wall, where Matt Damon's like the white guy who's saving all the Chinese, or like The Last Samurai, or Dances with Wolves. There's a lot of examples of that where like it kind of takes the struggle of like a native people or a marginalized people, if you will, and it gives them a, you know, like a white guy, meaning a person who can relate to us, the audience. And by us, the audience, I mean what you know, like a Hollywood executive pictures when he thinks us, the audience. And since he's American and probably white, that's sort of how he feels. That's usually the quote unquote default, right? They did that with Avatar. It just wasn't as offensive because he was a human and they were aliens, right? So when people say whitewashing, that's what I think of. I think of like, oh, this is a story about a native people, but they're gonna be the supporting characters, even though the story is about them. The main story is gonna be about the outsider who's one of quote unquote us. I'm gonna be doing quote unquote a lot in this because so that people don't think I'm using these terms, right? I'm trying to speak about this from the outside, and I'm trying to be very, very fair here. I hope people notice that. Like because I'm very opinionated, but I'd like to think that I can be fair in my assessment of this. And again, the whole point I'm getting to is that I agree with them that this movie's guilty of whitewashing. If they call it that, I would call it something else, but we're in agreement on that, and I'm going to get to that. And they're going to be spoilers, by the way. I didn't discuss what the other thing I was going to talk about was, but you know what? It's in the graphic that you're looking at on the screen, so you probably know that it's Legion. But there are going to be spoilers for both of them. I would say you should worry less about the Ghost in the Shell spoilers because you shouldn't see it. It's not good. It's really not good. I mean, it's really bad, even, I would say. But if you want to, then I would say stop now, and I'll put a thing where you'll know when the Legion non-spoiler talk starts. Although I don't think I'm going to spoil Legion at all, because it's one of those things that I would feel bad. Like, I want to praise it a lot, and I don't want to spoil any of it because that's part of the fun. So don't expect too much, if any, Legion spoilers. But I am going to get into some spoilers now as I discuss this whole racial angle behind Ghost in the Shell. I'm just going to take a 2-second break to let people hit pause if they want to. So as I said, when I hear whitewashing, I think something else. I don't think about the Iron Fist controversy, for instance, where people were like, maybe this character should be an Asian actor because this thing is so steeped in Asian culture that it would be kind of awkward if it was a white guy. However, that's, I guess, the whole point of Iron Fist, right? He's a white guy and he sort of finds himself in that situation. So a complaint like that strikes me as odd. Also, on the reverse, like Heimdall, when they cast, or you know what, Idris Elba, he's playing Roland Deschain, the gunslinger in the Dark Tower movie, and I see a lot of people grumbling about that and they don't like it. I don't mind that at all. I don't care. I don't think that would make any difference at all. Even though he is white in the books. Because it doesn't matter. I would rather see a good actor who's maybe not the accurate race from the source material than to compromise for accuracy that doesn't matter. Because some accuracy matters. I think some accuracy matters. If you make Mary Jane, like if you take Mary Jane and you make her not a redhead, then that doesn't really affect the story or anything. But that's just kind of like, why would you do that? Like, she's sort of famously redheaded. It's just a thing, right? But still, if they cast someone and she was amazing in the role, that probably would win out over my desire for her to have red hair, because that's just how I know she's supposed to be. So, which brings us again. I keep going on tangents, but I'm keeping this all flowing in the same direction. Okay, so Motoko Kusanagi, which is the name of the major in the Ghost in the Shell franchise, her name is now changed to Mira Killian. That's the name, and she says it over and over in the movie. just to hammer home that they changed her name, because it's actually a plot point. That's the whole thing I was going to spoil. The idea that she's white and she's supposed to be Japanese is not only a plot point, it's a main plot point. It's a very substantial element of the story is the fact that she is Japanese, actually. And that she was a Japanese woman called Motoko Kusanagi, who was like an anti-government, anti-technology activist, and the government kidnapped her and took her brain and erased her memory and put her in a robot body and tried to turn her into like a weapon, like a weaponized sort of cyborg, whatever. And they implanted a fake memories in her brain about being a refugee whose boat sunk on its way to Japan, and that her body couldn't be saved, so they only saved her brain. That is fucking stupid. I mean, seriously. It's a plot contrivance that's really weird and feels like it was backed into because they wanted Scarlett Johansson. Like, it feels to me like the people at DreamWorks or whoever was behind this movie came to the creative people and said, we want Scarlett Johansson to be in this movie. Figure out a way to make that work. Write a script in which it makes sense that the main character of Ghost in the Shell is Scarlett Johansson, a white woman. And then they sort of reverse engineered this story. That, my friends, I think gives the whitewashing crowd this victory. Like, I give them this victory, 100%. That is incredibly dumb. If you're going to do that, then just make it an American story. Do a thing like you did with The Ring, or do a thing like they did back in the day with Magnificent Seven, which is they took Seven Samurai and turned it into cowboys. Do that. Don't sell me that you're trying to because I guess they're trying to still appeal to the fans of the source material, or maybe the international market. And so they feel like they can't bring like other maybe global fans of Ghost in the Shell on board if they turned it into an American thing. But then just cast somebody who's fucking Asian. I mean, seriously, like you can't have your cake and eat it too. I'm sorry. It's like the result is so odd. And so I groaned loudly at the end when she's Scarlett Johansson standing next to a grave that says Motoko Kusanagi on it. I was like, fuck this. I mean, really. Like, I mean, honestly, I fight back against a lot of what I think is sort of manufactured racial outrage about stuff like this. Here, it's like they have such a case. Like, any think piece about this that's obnoxious and accuses that of racism or whatever, I'm just gonna have to give it to them. I mean, I'm sure somebody's gonna still annoy me, but I'm just saying that, like, if you get to the point where you have to, like I said, engineer your script to make your racially off casting make sense, then you're guilty of whatever they want to call it, whitewashing. Now, I'm sure some people still won't mind, and I'm sure some people might think it was a clever idea. And as far as ways to do that, if you had to do that, then I guess, yes, this was a good way to do that. I just think that doing it is a horribly bad idea. And I do think this movie's going to suffer for it, I think. It's certainly not going to please, because it feels like a weird attempt to please people who are bothered by the racial disparity. And to say, no, you see, it's actually, and it's not just her, by the way, it's also the main antagonist, Kuzo, of the movie. Turns out they were like lovers, and he was Hideo, a Japanese man, and she was Motoko, a Japanese woman, and they turned them both into like, an Aryan propaganda poster or whatever. So yeah, I want to steer away from the politics here, but I just wanted to say that, like, this really was a thing that I thought to myself as I was watching it, and as this whole thing unfolded, where she goes to her own mother's house, and her own mother tells her the story of Motoko, and I was like, oh my, I cannot believe that they're doing this. Yeah. So that's one big element of it. And I do, and by the way, which kind of segues me into my next point, which is odd creative choices. There's a lot of odd creative choices here. Like I said, they cast Beat Takeshi as Chief Aramaki, and inexplicably, he just speaks Japanese. And there's subtitles. And they all speak English. Everybody speaks English to everybody, except for Aramaki, who speaks Japanese to everybody. And Beat Takeshi looks so miserable. He looks like his family's being held at gunpoint, and he's being forced to make this movie. His lines are delivered dead face. He's more of a robot than Scarlett Johansson. She's emoting and crying, and she's a robot, and he's sitting there stone-faced, and he's a human. And it's so weird. It's so weird. There's no Japanese in it. They're in Japan. There's no Japanese. Everybody's for Juliette Binoche is a French doctor. Now, if they wanted to make it kind of multinational, because Bato, I guess, is supposed to be Danish. He speaks with a Danish accent. Saito says one word in the movie in Japanese, but that's the only word he says. Then there's a woman who's, I think, British, and she's black or something like that. I got the IMDb open here because I didn't recognize her. Or maybe Indian. She was something non-white, and she was a woman. She spoke also with an accent. So if their idea was like, okay, it's the future, so everything's sort of globalized and culturally mixed, then have other people speak other languages and sort of make the case that everybody has a translator chip in their brain, so it doesn't matter. But it was only him. Like if the other woman on the team spoke French randomly or something like that, and somebody else spoke Chinese, and there were subtitles and they all understood each other, that could have been an interesting way to show that the language barrier in the future becomes irrelevant. But it was just him. I thought that was super, super weird. Other things, I thought the music wasn't good, and I love Clint Mansell. Like, I think he's made some of the most amazing music ever, including probably the most overused piece of music I think exists these days, which is the main theme to Requiem for a Dream. And he did an all right. I mean, the music isn't bad. But if you go listen to the Ghost in the Shell music, it's so interesting, and it's so not just orchestral score, especially the main theme, which has this like weird vocal thing with like a Japanese choir. It's really, really cool. And they had a teeny tiny bit of that. And like the first scene in the movie, it sort of replicates the first scene of the anime, which is essentially how she's created, and how like all the robot parts are slowly built, and it's sort of covered with this synthetic skin. And just compare the music that's playing during those two sequences and see what emotional difference there is. The movie is just this like strings and a little bit of electro. It's really generic. It's like that could have been like, think about other opening themes that go over credits, or a scene like that, like the one in Fight Club, which is a Dust Brothers track, and several others. Like this was a perfect opportunity to go way outside the box, and Clint Mansell actually can go way outside the box. Like I'm something tells me that they used some kind of temporary score to mix this, and fell in love with how it sounded, and then just went to Clint Mansell and said, write something like this. I might be wrong. Maybe this was just their vision. But I feel like in a movie that's about a crazy future where everybody's a half cyborg, fucking throw everything in the kitchen sink in. Like, make it interesting, make it unique. Don't just give me regular. And that's another thing about it. Like, there's some cool visuals in this movie, but it's so drab and boring. Like, it's just a drab, boring city that has a lot of like big holographic billboards everywhere. Like, that's about it. They didn't really, I don't know. And like, they have really nice shots of like these huge impersonal apartment blocks, but I know that they just shot that somewhere like in China or Japan where those things actually exist. It didn't look like think about how authentically decrepit the stuff that stuff that what's his name does in District 9 and even Elysium and also even Chappie, which is a terrible movie, but like he makes the sort of the dirty lived in future really sort of feel tactile. And here it was just like, I don't know, the streets were always empty except in very specific scenes where it was supposed to not be empty, and everything was drab, and the final battle was at night in a really dark place with a lot of smoke. It's the scene where she fights the tank. It wasn't that great. The one thing I'll give him credit is I thought they were going to cop out and not have her arms rip when she tears the hatch off of it. But they did. It was just one arm. I think it's both arms in the anime. It's also way more like visceral, where she kind of comes apart as she pulls it. And here it was a little more kind of smooth and in slow motion, and didn't have that effect of like, it didn't feel like a machine just, bursting apart from effort. And the characters were so bland, like nobody had any personality. Like I said, except for Bato a little bit. I thought that guy, and they had somewhat of a not bad chemistry. It mostly came from him. I think Scarlett Johansson emotes a lot in this movie, but at the wrong moments. And I don't think her face shouldn't be this expressive. She feels too much like a human. And she also feels, there's a couple of like weird, things like she's called the Major. She's a major. In the anime, she's a major. She was in the military. Her major is her military rank. She came from military intelligence to Section 9, which is a civilian, like almost like a federal agency, like the FBI or something like that. And so her rank is major. Aramaki used to be a colonel in the army, but they don't call him colonel. They call him chief. Major is just her nickname. Okay? Here, she is Major Mira Killian, and she's been there a year. So at the beginning of the movie, they say, "Oh, you were a refugee, and your body was broken, and we saved your brain." And then in the other room, the guy who runs the robotics company is like, "She's gonna be a weapon." And then it says 1 year later, and then they're on an op, and she's the Major. She's a major. That's her rank. She became a major and an expert on all police work and stuff in a year. Now, you can say, well, they downloaded that knowledge into her brain. Sure. But her backstory is that she's a refugee. How does she reconcile the fact that she's just some random refugee with the fact that she can now jump backwards off a building and swing into a room and kill 15 people and only have a scratch on her? I don't get it. And if the future is such that you could just make anybody like that, train anybody like that, then like what makes her so special? Nothing. Also, there was a sort of a point made in it that idea where you can teach someone something instantly is slowly being introduced into this world, but isn't yet like ubiquitous. And again, like I can get into really specific little things that bugged me. Like the fact that, like I said, she meets her own mother, but that scene is so awkward. Like she's going to find her old house because the doctor decides to give her the real info about who she is before the robotics company has her killed. And so she's going to this apartment block and she finds a cat, and the cat likes her, and she picks up the cat, and then the cat's purring. And then a Japanese lady opens the door and goes, "Oh, you found my cat. Oh, he seems to like you. Why don't you come in and have some tea?" And she comes in to have tea, and then the woman all of a sudden just tells her about her dead daughter. Oh, she looks in the room, and then the woman's like, "Oh, my daughter died." And she tells the story of her daughter. She was an anti-technology activist in a very thick Japanese accent that like 75% of people won't understand. And the government took her, and then they told me she killed herself, and I don't believe it. And you remind me of her. And Scarlett Johansson's like, "I remind you of her?" She's like, "Yes, she used to look at me like you look at me." And the only reason she said that is because Scarlett Johansson hasn't said a word in this entire scene. And it's just a plot contrivance that the woman's like, "You remind me of my daughter, please come visit me again." And she has this like emotional moment. And it's just, Lame. A few nice nods. The garbage truck scene with the guy who has the fake memories. I kind of smiled at that because, yes, that's from the anime. They did it better in the anime. I thought way better. Also explaining what was happening. Like, I feel like many people will see that scene and not understand it exactly. So then they also explain to you what happened, which I thought was really lame. Togusa has a Mateba gun like he does in the animates. In one scene, he holds it up to the camera so that you can see he has the gun that everybody knows that he has. I thought the cars looked really lame. What else? I don't know. Like, the story was really boring and didn't really go anywhere. And Kuze was like, I don't know. It was just so weird. It was so weird. And the entire time I was sitting there and going like, trying to understand, trying to put myself in the shoes of someone who's just coming to see a movie. And whether or not they could find some entertainment in this. And I guess maybe, but I mean, you know, I'll put this in the same kind of group as stuff like the Aeon Flux movie with Charlize Theron, or Ultraviolet with Mila Jovovich. Action woman, ninja action woman, futuristic, but with some interesting visuals and ideas. But overall, really boring and weird. But weird not in an interesting way. Weird and like we wanted to do a weird thing, and so we sat down and tried to think of what kind of weird thing we could do, which I don't think ever works. I think weird needs to be organic. Like, you need to have a good idea that's also weird, which is gonna lead me into my next topic, Legion. Which is a great example of weird done. I mean, well is understating how well it was done. So just in conclusion, Ghost in the Shell, it's a bad movie. Not just for people with the anime stuff. It's bad and it's awkward. And like I said, they're really blatantly odd attempt to reconcile the fact that they decided to cast her specifically in this and not, like, I don't know, some other actress. Really bizarre. Rupert Sanders is not good. I did not like Snow White and the Huntsman. That actually ripped off some anime stuff too from Miyazaki. It ripped off Princess Mononoke scenes. And it wasn't interesting. It was kind of like this. It was like non-inspiring. It took an idea that could have been done really interestingly and just kind of wasted it, I feel. So yeah, that's your Ghost in the Shell review from me. I give it 0 neons out of 5. No, I'm not gonna do a thing. And so we come to Legion. The Legion finale just aired this Wednesday. 8 episode first season. It's already been renewed for a second season. It's on FX. Created by that guy who created the Fargo TV show. I'm just gonna Google this and just say until I Google it. And pretend that I'm trying to retrieve the name from my memory when I'm actually just wasting time. Oh, Noah Hawley, that's his name. And so he made Fargo, the TV show, which also I'm hearing just crazy praise for. And so I'm gonna check it out. And Legion, how will I explain Legion to you? It's also something that's based on source material that people like, but apparently, unlike Ghost in the Shell, can appeal to both fans of the source material and people who don't know anything about the source material. The source material being X-Men. I don't know if a lot of people know this is an X-Men show. I knew it was an X-Men show, which is why I didn't watch it. I think the way that the X-Men universe is going, set aside Logan for a second, is not good, and I'm not excited about future X-Men projects at all, especially not TV ones, because whatever. I feel like we're going to get another Mutant X, which is just a terrible, terrible show. So I knew Legion was sort of X-Men related, and so I didn't watch it until I heard that I kind of have to. And so then I went and I did it. But if you're turned off by stuff like that, and not just from my point of view of being a fan of these kind of things, but just specifically not X-Men, like if you don't like comic book stuff, superhero stuff, rest assured, this show will really, really entertain you. I mean, if you have to like sort of the supernatural or whatever because the show's supernatural, although I think if you're a fan of well-made and well-constructed, mind-bendy, psychological, also like I said, well-executed stuff, then maybe that could override your dislike of supernatural things, because that to me is the main focus and the main sell of the show. It's like Breaking Bad meets Inception or something like that. Like I'll put it like this. Nothing in this show is throwaway. No scene of dialogue is just shot as a boring scene of dialogue. Nothing is not deliberate. If you watch a show or a movie, most shows or movies have what I call throwaway elements. As I said, there's a scene of dialogue that we need to do. And you know what? It could even be magnificently acted. But it's just shot starkly in the daytime. It's two people standing somewhere, and one camera's pointed at one of them, and one camera's pointed at the other one, and they shoot a scene of dialogue. And you know what? Sometimes things call for that. I totally understand. And you know what? When things call for that, it's kind of obvious, and then it works because of that. And also, I think that there are varying levels of what I'm describing here, because you can shoot something starkly in the daytime, two people just speaking, and make that interesting. I'm talking specifically about things that are shot because you need those shots in the movie for the plot or for other reasons, and they're, as I said, throwaways. Point the camera at a thing, hit record for some time, stop. I feel like Legion is one of those things that doesn't have any of that. Everything is artistic. They take opportunities to do artistic things where other shows don't, and they use all of their runtime in order to express creative effort. There's creative effort in every second of this show and also in every element of it, because the show is also, it's tiered on a time scale, right? You got episodes, but it's also tiered to the height, meaning you have the writing, the acting, how it's shot, how it's the music, the editing, the stuff like that, the humor that goes in script. But I'm saying, like, there's multiple tiers in which a show can succeed or fail, and there's also multiple instances in which a show can succeed or fail. So because some episodes can be good and some can be bad, right? Or a show can be overall good but like not well cast. Okay, I feel like this show has really, really high marks on both of those metrics, meaning every element was good and also every episode was good. So much so that when I heard that it was going to get renewed, I got a little worried. Because I said, how are they gonna replicate this? Because the story is constructed so cleverly, and reveals of information come at very deliberate moments, including things that you didn't even think that you needed explained, like things that just happen, and you're like, oh sure, that's part of the story. All of a sudden, there's a sort of a deep, interesting reason behind them that you didn't even know existed until you saw it. Like, I watched a couple of the episodes a second time. I sat down with a friend who hadn't seen it and watched like the first 2 or 3 episodes again, and immediately noticed a ton of things that I missed the first time. Meaning that, again, they use every second of the show in order to flesh out and make their story better, including things that you would only notice upon a second viewing. Really little subtle things that are later explored more. And so, you know what I mean? Like, I can't think of an example offhand but you know, like if some show or some movie has the same scene multiple times in the movie or the show in order to direct your attention to details you didn't notice the first time, right? The first time you watch that scene, you don't notice any of that stuff. It's all there. But because this is the first time through and you don't know the context that you later learn, you don't know to look at something, or you sometimes see something happening and it has a meaning that you have not yet discovered. And this like I said, the first 2 or 3 episodes, however many I had watched a second time, had that in spades. I mean, a ton of little detail. A lot of little times where I just smiled and I was like, I know what happens with that. Or, oh my God, I didn't notice how early they established this plot point or this element that I had only noticed much later. So like I said, I'm not going to be spoiling any of this because I think it's very... I'm just going to give you the launching off point. It's about a guy named David, and he is schizophrenic, and he's in a mental hospital. And that's it, I guess. I'm trying to think of whether or not there's anything... Well, I mean, you know what? I told you that it's mind-bendy and superpowery, right? So you obviously know that it's not just a show about people in a mental hospital, right? Really well cast, including some unknowns. The main guy in it, whose name is Dan Stevens. I didn't know him. Apparently, he was in Downton Abbey. He was like the big Downton Abbey guy. I mean, I've actually seen him in a really obscure Netflix movie called The Guest, and I totally forgot that this was him, but he's really good. He, I think, is going to be like a huge star. And already he's being cast in a lot of things. He was cast in the new show that's going to be on, I think, Netflix or maybe Hulu, that's made by Gareth Evans, the guy who made the Raid movies. He's making a thing called Apostle, and he's starring in it. And he's also he's the Beast in Beauty of the Beast. So I think his career is gonna take off. And then some other lesser known people, but also better known people. Like I think Aubrey Plaza is probably the most famous person on this entire cast, and holy shit, is she good in it. She gives a performance because her role is very demanding. Once again, I can't go into it, but I will say that her role is very demanding, and she really nails it. In a way where, again, I wish she would be in more things that would let her exercise these muscles that she exercises in this show. Put it that way. Because, like I said, I'm trying to be as vague as possible. But yes, a very interesting cast, and again, well shot. The music is really good. The sound design and the sound editing and the film editing, and as I said, the cinematography, the script is really good. It's funny, it's charming, it's entertaining, it's weird. It's all of the characters in it are, Lost, before Lost got crazy and bad. One of the things that I loved about Lost in the prime of its existence is how deep and interesting and layered all of the characters were, and how you gradually discovered more things about them and other sides to their personalities. And then maybe some of the things you knew about them weren't true. Maybe they were lying about something about themselves. And I'm not saying that happens here, or maybe it does. I'm not saying that it does or doesn't. I'm just saying that I'm talking about Lost right now. But my point is, it has that same kind of element of like, again, nothing is throwaway. No character is just a side character that's there to say a quip or, punch somebody in the face because they're the strong person. They're people. And that's really good. And you'd be surprised how rarely it happens that a show or a movie can do all of these things and do them well at the same time. That's not an easy feat, and I don't really have much more to say about this. I mean, Ghost in the Shell, I spoke a lot because I also introduced a lot of outside context, but I had way more to say about how bad that was than I have to say about how good this is, because of the spoilery element. But you know what? I think maybe what I could do is I could put a marker in here for people, because I'm gonna talk for like 5 minutes at the very end of this about things that I might be planning for the future. But if you've already seen it and maybe you want to hear what I have to say about a couple of things in it, then maybe I could do a couple of minutes on that. I'm just trying to think of stuff that I would want that I would want to say right now, and coming up kind of short. I feel like if I were discussing this with someone, like if I had a co-host right now who had also seen and liked Legion, we could probably explore a lot of the more interesting plot points and stuff. But yeah, whatever. I mean, you know, I loved it. I loved it. It was the best TV I've seen in years. And like I said, it's like Breaking Bad and Inception had a baby. It's Breaking Bad in terms of the kind of TV that every week sort of just blows you away at how interesting and creative and innovative it can be, and how it can evolve its own storytelling in interesting ways. And Inception in the terms of how mind-bendy it is, and it's, you never know what to expect. And there are plot twists, I guess, and developments that will take you by complete and utter surprise. So go out and watch it. Now you have the luxury of being able to watch all of them in a row. And as I said, it's been renewed for a second season. I cannot wait. If it maintains this level of quality, it's going to be something truly special. I mean, I think this guy, Noah, he has a weird name. I'm sorry. Hawley, Noah Hawley, Hawley. I really should remember his name, because this is another guy I think is going to be someone that you're going to be hearing a lot about in like the coming decade. So that's about it for the things that I had a fire under my ass to talk about, because as I mentioned in the beginning, I have been doing some Twitch streaming lately. I got a PS4. I decided that I was outside of the current gaming world. I have been outside of the current gaming world a little too long. A lot of my friends, most of my friends, game to some extent or other, and I felt like a real outsider. Like I felt that like there was this party and I wasn't invited to it. And I did game. I did have a 360 and I played older games. I played some Dark Souls. I was tweeting a few months ago about how bad I was at Dark Souls, and I died 100 times trying to do something and was unsuccessful, and still walked away loving it. Like I thought that game was great, even though I really failed at playing it. I think that goes back to my instincts as having grown up with like Nintendo games, where like some of the games I owned for years and I never saw more than the first level, and I still play them all the time. But I never saw more than the RoboCop Nintendo game. I don't think I ever got past the first stage of that game, and I played it a bazillion times. So Twitch streaming. So I've been playing some games. Like I said, I got a PS4, and one of the most interesting things to me is the social ecosystem of current gaming. And I knew it existed. I wanted to stream until I discovered that with my 360 I couldn't do it. I needed a capture card, and I didn't have that. But I knew that the current gen consoles have the native ability to do that. So I said to myself, well, one day I'll get a PS4 or an Xbox One, and then I'll figure that out. And so the time came where I was able to purchase one of them, and I found a really cheap PS4 bundle. Like it was like $250 or something like that. It was really quite affordable. And so I got it, and I said to myself, well, I'm not a phenomenal gamer, at least not yet. And there's some games that I'm phenomenal at, but I do think that I can bring some added benefit because I can comment on stuff. You know, I mean, look, I'm talking to you, right? My counter's at 53 minutes of just me blathering into a microphone alone in my apartment. So if I could do that and play a game, meaning have something on screen that I could comment about and also interact with people, because I'm recording this and I'm going to put it up later and then people will comment on it or not. It's really nice to be able to have live feedback about what you're saying, and people asking questions and people giving me tips in the games. I've been playing Uncharted. I played a little Last of Us. I played a lot of The Binding of Isaac, which I'm sort of obsessed with now. And that reinvigorated my desire to do some more podcasts, maybe put together some YouTube videos. I'm toying with some ideas of things to do now. Make this digital space, this YouTube channel, this Twitch channel, this Twitter account that's connected to them, make it a creative space for me where I can put out stuff that hopefully people will enjoy. I'm certainly enjoying doing it. which is the primary reason that I'm doing it, is because I lack recreation. My life lacks recreation. Meaning that I was in the need of something new that was just fun, that I could just do for fun. Like one of the things I do for fun is I study Japanese, but that's really hard. It's satisfying and I enjoy it, but it's a class. I mean, I go to school and I sit down and I do homework that's really hard and involves a lot of repetition, and there's frustration when you don't remember shit, and there's even more frustration when you get shit wrong. It's fun, but it's a hard kind of fun. I wanted a pure fun thing. And yes, video games are hard, but you know what I mean. It's not the same. Getting stuck on a boss or getting stuck in a room, like in Uncharted, there were a couple of times where I had to play the same room 10 times because I kept getting killed. That's not the same as having to sit down for 3 hours and write Japanese characters because otherwise you won't remember them. It's not exactly the same kind of frustration, I think. And so I am at my most happy, I think, when I'm creating things. And it could be just this. It could just be me talking and putting a thing out there that maybe interests someone or gives somebody insight on something. Or like I said, just entertainment for someone, because I'm doing this for my entertainment, and if you, the person listening to this right now, are listening for your entertainment, then we both win. It's a transaction with no losers, right? I put out a fun thing that was fun for me to make, and you're listening to this thing and having fun listening to it, and I don't know, making the world a better place. I mean, that sounds kind of I don't know, cringy. But you know what I mean. I just mean, like, I want to do good stuff. I complain a lot on Twitter. I fight a lot on Twitter, more than I should be. So maybe balance that out karmically, if for myself, if for nobody else, by also doing things that are just pure fun. And this was really fun. I just spoke for an hour about a movie that I literally just got back from seeing. And I feel like I did a decent job. And so, yeah. Check me out at twitter.com at neontaster, /neontaster, at neontaster on Twitter. If you're interested in that kind of anger but I also do funny stuff on Twitter. It's not pure anger. At Neoncast, or twitter.com /neoncast. That is the account that is going to focus on this podcast, on my Twitch, which is twitch.tv /neontaster. And the YouTube channel, youtube.com/c/neontaster. It's the same everywhere. I'm also Neontaster on Instagram, which I recently started using again, and I don't have Facebook, not a Neontaster Facebook anyway. And also neoncastpod at gmail.com. Email me for whatever. If you have recommendations for games, if you want me to talk about things or review things, or if you think I got something wrong, or I don't know, all that kind of shit, and it's too long form for a tweet, then just email me at that email. As I said, stay tuned for more of this. I think the next time I'm going to do this is going to be after I watch Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which is in another month or so. Unless I have some other topic to talk about. I don't know. Maybe I'll have something that'll spark my fancy previously. But if you want to hear me blather more, you can go, as I said, to twitch.tv /neontaster. There are already several 2-hour-long streams of me playing stuff like Uncharted and Binding of Isaac, and all I do is talk, kind of like now. Maybe more short form. I don't spend 35 minutes on one topic, but movies, anime, about games, a little bit about politics, but not really, about my Twitter, and other fun stuff. I think we have fun. The same people keep tuning in, so I guess they're enjoying it. So that has been the Neoncast, episode 13. We're back, I guess. I hope. So thanks for listening, if you have been listening. And if not, then why am I talking to you?